guess you lose some and win some. Long as the outcome is income.
Welcome back to the Outcome is Income podcast with your hosts, Saif Dersey and Reese Booth. This is episode 8 and we are delighted to have Jasmine and Priya, also known as the Hard Hat Developers. Now, they have been through an incredible journey, and during this episode we talk all things business partnerships, how to cover for each other. We also talk about whether entrepreneurs should wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, or whether it's absolutely fine to wake up at 9 a.m. every morning. Now sit back, relax and enjoy this episode. Priya, Jasmine, also known as the Hard Hat Developers, welcome to the Outcome is Income podcast.
Well, thank you for having us.
Brilliant. So obviously we've met a couple of times at a few different property events. We obviously follow each other on Instagram. I then met Priya as well at it was an auction property workshop actually as well. So, you know, I think it's one of these ones where you kind of see people from the outside from Instagram, but it's really good to kind of get to know you guys as well a bit more. And it's really good to see that kind of you have this partnership as well. And I think we kind of shared a lot of same kind of struggles in property as everyone does have. So yeah, it's brilliant to have you guys on. Do you want to kind of just, I guess, really start with you maybe, Priya, and just tell us a bit about kind of before Hard Hat Developers actually became Hard Hat Developers? What were you doing before briefly, and then kind of how did you get into this partnership as well?
Okay, so I did a degree in economics, graduated and started working in the city in investment banking. I worked there for 6 years and then essentially got made redundant. At that point in time, I was kind of like, I didn't really know what to do. It also came at me in around the end of October, so similar time to this time, I would say, how many years ago? 5 years ago now, around this time. And at that point in time, I was like, should I get a new job? I've always wanted to have my own business, but didn't really know what that business was or how I kind of saw that vision in my head. Always knew I wanted to work for myself. At that point in time, my dad was also investing in property as kind of his hobby on the side. So he was like, come with me. We went to a few property meets. We went to a few kind of day trips to look at his properties. A few people were showing him around kind of what HMO was, because that was kind of the new thing back then, and kind of, you know, learning. So I went there, and I think my first meet was in Blackfriars, and I absolutely hated it. I hated speaking to people. I hated the whole fact that you had to talk to people. I just didn't enjoy it at all. And then I went on a trip with my mum and my dad to Sheffield for 9 hours in the back of the car, which was not fun. I absolutely hated it. I was literally like, can we get home, because I need to get out because I'm going clubbing, because I was very young at that point in time. And literally the highlight of the day was the journey back home and me getting back into London. So that was, again, hated it. Then kind of started looking for some jobs, didn't really have anything that kind of I wanted to do. So I was like, okay, maybe I give this property thing another go and kind of give it my full attention, as opposed to just whilst working on the weekend and just in the evening, that kind of thing. So I started in January, and by March had bought 3 HMOs for my savings from working in investment banking. And then I was getting a bit bored, because my only friend was my dad, and I lived at home. I woke up in the morning and he was there, and I went to bed and he was there, and then we spoke all day in the day. And then I realized that he actually wasn't being my dad. He was now trying to like coach me / be my boss / tell me what to do. And I was like, this is too much for me. So my best friend is Jasmine's husband. And at that point in time, he was like, why don't you meet Jazzy, and kind of you can, you know, just see if you get on, and, you know, see if, you know, there's anything there, and, you know, just help each other, because she was in a similar situation. And then, I'll let Jazzy tell the rest.
No, you're doing a pretty good job.
And so then Jasmine and I, we kind of met. We liked making shisha, so we went for a few shishas, and we kind of just naturally were pushing each other, kind of without realizing it, to go to more networking meets, to kind of learn about different things. I got pretty bored of HMOs very quickly. So then I decided that I kind of wanted to focus more on larger projects, commercial projects. So we kind of started helping each other, and kind of we made like a little timetable of like what we thought we would need to cover, and we'd like divvy up the research, and it was just kind of more peer-to-peer learning, which was essentially kind of what we liked. And it was nice to have someone else to talk about, someone of similar age, kind of, similar interests, and also have fun whilst doing it, as opposed to my dad being grumpy all day. So so we kind of just got we're just literally doing that. We were looking at different kind of commercial structures, different types of projects, and then one evening we went out and we were like, well, should we just do a project together? And at that point, we had no office, we had nothing. We were literally just sitting in each other's living rooms or in a
Shisha
or
lounge.
a Costa, Starbucks, that kind of thing. And then suddenly we started to kind of get a lot more traction. Projects started coming our way. We kind of then had to very quickly, obviously we trade under Hard Hat as our social media name, but we have other trading names for different properties. We had to kind of think of a property name very quickly and form a partnership, and it all happened very, very quickly. Actually, my mum was making us dinner and shouted out, why don't you just call it this? I was like, that's actually stupid. And then I was like, actually, that's actually quite good. So that's what happened. And
it was very organic. The process was very organic. It wasn't like we met at a networking event and we're like, oh, you've got money and I've got time and we'll just JV together. Or it wasn't like, I don't want to be alone, so I'm just going to meet the first person I find and become a business partner with them. There was just, the process was just very organic. And when we got into our first deal together, like we had found a project that we both liked, we'd run the numbers, whatever, we've got an offer accepted. I think there were naturally things that were happening that made both of us feel quite secure in working together. Like everything was quite 50-50. We both, like financially, it was 50-50. It was also very much of the fact that I really wanted to like do a lot of on the job kind of learning, especially on the bigger projects. So did Priya. So we were both aware that although we were wanting to make money, we were just as much trying to learn and grow in this process. So we were always both a part of everything that the other was doing. At that point, we weren't delegating anything out. And it was just a whole kind of mutual respect and understanding of what the other person also needed and wanted from the business and kind of from the project itself. At that point, it was a project, not really a business, to be honest. It was a business effectively, but we were in it for the project.
But the interesting thing just on that point, Jasmine, is that you guys have come from a point of, so a lot of people that get into property because they hate what they're doing and I'm not going to say this in a bad way, but they might be in a point of desperation to try and get away from something they're currently doing, in which case it means that it kind of forces them to do something they probably don't want to do within property, and it might start off on the wrong foot. Whereas you guys came in from a very organic, natural, I guess, friendship point of view first and foremost, as you said, and then it kind of led you down this garden path of let's look at the long term. It's not about making money; it's about learning, putting more of these projects on our CV. So we want to have HMOs and commercial projects and new builds and everything else on our CV, because that's what's going to help the long term for us to kind of sustain this whole partnership. But coming back to sort of, obviously we've got Priya's background. What's kind of your background, Jasmine, as well, just briefly?
So I bought my first property when I was 19. I bought a HMO before there was actually HMOs. There was no regulations. There was no HMO officers, whatever. There was no HMO mortgages. But I basically bought my university house. I went into my second year. I rented out there were 6 rooms. I lived in one. I rented the other 5. But I had to get my mum as a guarantor on my mortgage because of my age. This was 2009, so it wasn't exactly the best financial time for the UK, especially all the world, but the UK especially. And I asked my grandma to basically provide me the money. I can be quite persuasive when I try, surprisingly. But that was kind of it, really. There was never really like, I don't know. I think people say like, oh, I woke up and I just knew from when I was a kid I wanted to be in property. It was like my dream. It was not my dream. It's just not my thing. Like, but I'd seen my mum have a few properties on the side. I was looking at rental prices and I was a little bit not savvy, but I kind of understood like what it was to hustle a little bit when you were younger. So I just kind of happened to get into this property and I sat on it for 2 years. I remortgaged out, gave my gran back her money. And then I had this cash. I didn't really do much with it. And then basically as I finished uni and I did my master's, I was just basically like, I had a full-time job but I was just kind of buying on the side with my money. So my mum was always of the thought process that you don't have to pay rent in my house and you can live your life, like create memories, don't spend money on shit. But if I was buying a property, my mum was always the one behind me, like, yeah, do it. Like this, like she was just always there to facilitate. So as I was working full time, I was literally just buying properties in Stoke, and they were like 3-bedroom multi-lets, 4-bedroom multi-lets. Like they were just easy. They were right next to the student, like right next to the campus. And I was just working full time. And then in 2016, I went full time in property because I worked for a company. I didn't like them. I didn't like my boss. And one day we had an argument, and he said, I can't remember what he said. He said something like, there's not jobs like this anywhere. And I was like, I don't need your bloody job. Like, I actually probably earn more money than you. Like, I actually don't need this job. So I left. I was 26. And yeah, that was kind of it, really. I think that I always liked the idea of working and making money, like having 2-3 incomes, especially at 26. Like me and Priya talk about it all the time. You go out, it's a bigger social life when you're working corporate, especially in London.
Yeah.
So when you kind of end up working for yourself, it goes really from zero. It goes from 60 to 0. You basically go back on yourself, and it's quite boring. But yeah, it was just property kind of organic, like it just happened. It was just a good idea. It wasn't really like.
So it's both come for you guys, because it's quite similar to me. My dad was a landlord, back in the 70s, 80s, etc. in London as well. And the 80s property crash hit him hard as well, especially with the interest rates, and it ended up going bust on the back of that. But he's always, I've always been curious about property because of that. And I think you guys as well, because you've seen kind of your parents or some kind of family members involved in property in one way, shape or form, is giving you that curiosity, which is interesting. And going back to your point as well, Jasmine, that you mentioned at the start. So in America, they call it house hacking. So house hacking is buying a house, living in it, and then basically renting out the other bedrooms, which is a really, really good way for people to start out in property if they don't really have much and they don't really want to be, if they're a bit worried about how do they start property, it's a great way. And being at university is even better. But I appreciate there's a lot of logistical issues you need to get around for mortgages, insurance, etc. as well.
Well, I think I'm like 14 years, or what is it, 13, 14 years on now. Like there wasn't so many rules, regulations back then. Everything was it was a lot easier. It was a lot simpler. You could have conversation with your broker. It really wasn't that deep. Like, I was on almost a buy-to-let mortgage. They were aware of what I was doing, and that there was no product available. And I just think it's more, I don't know, we've had this conversation. I don't think either of us, I always knew, both like Priya, I always knew I wanted to own my own business, but I just never knew what that business was. And I think the both of us are in property for it to kind of be like a foundation for us. It's almost like, let's create this business that gives us money and we have freedom. And then at some point we will find a passion that we both love, either together or separately, that we will want to pursue in business. But this was almost just like a stepping stone to kind of cut our teeth on how a business runs and make money while we figure out kind of what that is.
I think that leads quite nicely onto the point that I wanted to get into, because I think you guys have quite an interesting story, especially how your partnership organically grew. And I think it's testament to your characters of how well your relationship is now, that this is all built on good foundations. So I guess the point that I want to get into really and understand is, at what point did you guys realize, hang on a minute, there's more going on here than just a partnership, this is actually a business now? At what point were you like, shit, we've got a business to run here?
I think for me, as soon as I became in property and was obviously made redundant, I lost 2 grandparents in 6 months, obviously whilst working with Jasmine. So for me, when my second grandparent passed, we were literally getting into probably one of the biggest deals, monetary, bill costs, everything that we had done at that time back then. And I literally didn't have the headspace to kind of figure everything out and continue. So I remember Jasmine came to my nan's and she was like, just seeing the family and whatever. And she was like, I need to speak to you. So we went upstairs And she was like, this is happening, blah, blah, blah. I'm not like, I'm just telling you what's happening. Like, I'm not asking for anything. I'm just like updating you. And at that point, I just think I turned around and I was like, do you know what? For me, you've got my money. We've already exchanged. Go and run the deal and figure your life with it. And if you want me to be involved, I'll be involved to help you. But when you can, pay me back and I'll start again. Like, I just mentally wasn't there for it, and I was like, just you continue and I'll be fine, like I'll figure it out. And Jasmine was like, no, either we start the deal together or we don't start it all. And she's like, I've got it until you're ready to come back to it, but I'm not going to continue without you. Either we do it together or none of us do it. And for me, that's when I was like, okay, this is not just like we're going out as mates and I've got to pay a £10 back tomorrow or whatever it may be. This is kind of like, this is the turning point for us both. And this is the future now. Like kind of this is, and then slowly, unfortunately, then COVID hit and that changed the dynamic a little bit because obviously the world went into lockdown, etc. But for us, that was kind of the turning point. And then in COVID, we had a lot more time. So we built up a lot more traction with regards to the business side, not only the property side.
Yeah.
And actually, as everyone started working from home, we started working in an office to get
out of the house.
Yeah, you're allowed then, kind of. And then that's when it kind of went full throttle,
Yeah.
I think
when we created like a different arm to the business, it wasn't like just finding a project and then investing in that project. It was more of a conversation. Like when we started the social media, that was a platform. And it was okay, we started coaching in lockdown because it was something to do, and it was almost kind of keeping our knowledge like a little bit, like sharp almost. We were also had our own respective properties, so we had our own issues in COVID, be it tenants moving out or whatever it was. So it was just kind of like we realized that there was more ways to cut the cloth, so to speak. There was so much more that we could do together and so much more money we could make. And then as soon as we almost kind of went into the office, we were both also on a very similar life plan at the time. Like we were in long-term relationships, we were planning on getting married, we were both moving, like we're both of a similar age, and we were both like looking to make chunks of money. And I think all those things together made sense, that it kind of worked as a business, not just per project.
So
I think that's really important.
On that point, Priya, as of today, because the whole point of this podcast, right, is to ask the difficult questions that also makes you think, but also makes our audience think as well. So, and feel free to answer this how you want, but as of today, if you had to be out of the business for a month or two, couldn't answer your phone calls, couldn't answer your emails, right, would the business thrive, survive, or go down?
Can I ask a question, because she's staring at me quite intently? Do you mean if one of us
one of you guys, not both,
well,
one of you guys. So
let me answer this question, okay? Because I actually went on honeymoon for 2 months, from November to December.
Yeah.
And Priya did not really let me do anything, like barely. Like I barely answered an email. We caught up a couple times on the phone, but I can honestly say there is quite literally no one that I would trust to run a business, my business, more than I would trust Priya. She would do it the same as me, if not probably better. And I think
100% better.
Right, well, humble much. But that's kind of the kind of big thing for me. Like I have a joint part, like I have properties with my mum, and I double check what she's doing, and I don't, sometimes I'm like doing it wrong, or I have to just like chase or whatever. With Priya, it's never like that. And
you're right on that point. So that really is, when people say partnerships are like marriage, it's even further than marriage. It's like, you've got to make sure that person, not only do you trust them, it's you can rely on them as well. It's the reliability factor, that they're incentivized to do not only as hard of work as you were going to do if you weren't there, but even harder than that, really. I think we've got...
I actually have to work harder when she's not here.
Yeah. Because
I feel like if I don't, then I'm going to be like in the shit when she comes back. I actually work, like if she's like, yesterday she had some appointments or whatever, and I was working, And then she was like, oh, I'll do it when I get back. I was like, no, I've done it. Like, we've got daily trackers, we've got some VAs doing some stuff for us. So like, we need to keep on top of it, but because we like to move a lot quicker now, because that was kind of weakness that we established. Anyway, cut a long story short, I was like, no, I've done it. She's like, okay, I'll do this. I was like, no, I've done it. I was like, leave me alone. Like, I'm fine. Like, you know, and it works both ways. On Friday, I've got to be somewhere, and well, you have to do all the work.
Yeah, and it is like I think it's a big thing to trust somebody financially.
Yeah.
So I remember when we got involved in the project, and the first one, well, Priya opened a bank account up with her other half before they were married, and it was like, to me, I was like, what do you mean? Like, why would you do that? Like, you're now financially tied with this guy. Like, I don't understand why you're doing this. This is really like silly. And
it was savings every month. Like, we both put the same amount.
It was fine. It wasn't my business to like understand what was going on with it. But my belief was to be financially tied to someone, like on a credit report, to have money together somewhere. That's like a big deal. It's not like something you should go into lightly. You might be connected with them for years and you don't know them from Adam. Like, what, like, you just don't know. Like, they could make a shitty decision. Her now husband could have made a shitty decision. Now we're together on paperwork, and his decision could affect me, and vice versa, and all that kind of stuff. And my mum's a lawyer, so my mum's very like, protect yourself, like, be smart. And it was like a real big deal. Like, it was just so when I went in financially with Priya, for me, it was like the biggest thing, because it was the only other person other than my mum that I was financially tied to. So like, that was big for me. That was a bigger commitment than marriage.
The funny thing is that she can't even get on half the online bankings because she doesn't bother to sort it out. So she's like, Priya, what's going on in this account? I'm like, I don't even know. I'm
okay, it's taken like 5 years to get to that point, but like, the trust is implicit. But the trust is now not only financial; it's trust that we will both ethically and morally do the same thing and make decisions like the other would do. It's the knowing that the ball won't get dropped when the other one isn't around. I think that the trust kind of, it is just it's so multifaceted that it's not just, people think it's just financial. It's not. Like, our families are now very like intertwined, and our lives are very intertwined, because I do feel like your business partner is basically a whole other marriage, if not more. It definitely is.
I agree. So the sequel, part 2 of this podcast, will be with Priya's husband and her dad, or that's going to be the sequel.
Why my husband and my dad? This podcast in the world.
I want to get their points of view on everything that you guys have said.
You mean my husband and Jasmine's husband, not my dad?
My husband will be like, yeah, but our husbands joke all the time, because they're like,
oh, how much work are you guys doing in the office? Are you chatting hard chat? Like, we literally
even today I was on my way, he's like, what, you're just going to go have a jolly and have lunch with Priya? I'm like, yeah, that's basically what we do all the live long day. Or like we'll be like, oh, you're going to call you, basically how much we speak to each other is more than we speak to them.
Yeah,
like 100%.
Yeah, because they've got their own jobs and things to do in the day when we're not working together, like, we're all doing different things, and Jazzy will call and like give me an update on something or whatever. Or if I'm out with my husband and he's like, oh, just talking to Jasmine again, are you? Just talking to Jasmine again, are you? He was like, 2 minutes of that was work, and like 10 minutes was just chatting.
I do the same with Reese, I think. So I speak to Reese, and that's probably more than I speak to my wife. My wife's a business partner as well with us as well, just bearing in mind. So, but yeah,
she's lucky.
Yeah. In all honesty, it also has its complications as well. But I guess from your perspective, it's what you enjoy, it's what's keeping your livelihood going, and that is intertwined because, you know, believe it or not, we're in an era now where we don't have time, we don't have focus, we have, a lot of priorities to be able to prioritize, and the reality is it's going to be family and work. That's our livelihood now as business owners, as property investors, entrepreneurs, whatever you want to call us. That's how it is. So for us, it's 24/7 work, family, work, family. We don't know anything between. And it's sad because I thought about it the other day, and I think, all of my friends that I used to have at uni and school and all the rest of it, I've lost touch with everyone because I just don't have the mind space or the focus to be able to continue a lot of my relationship. And it's not that I wouldn't speak to them if I could. It's just the fact that they're not on the top of my priority list, unfortunately, and because my priority is work, life, and family. That's it.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the harsh sort of realities of going down the sort of more entrepreneurial journey, though, isn't it? It's something that you don't really have there's no crash course on how to maintain relationships, is there? It just happens, and I think it's something that's hard to avoid.
I also think it's very difficult for people to also understand, because obviously I came from like working corporate, so I had a lot of friends in the corporate world, and we were all like, just graduated. It was so much fun going to work. It was literally like, like the common room at work every day, but obviously we had to do a little bit of work. And then when I came out of that and I became self-employed, I couldn't be there on Thursday night for drinks, or I couldn't be there, to go for a lunch for 2 hours and, whatever. And you just naturally start to lose touch with people who you thought were your good friends, but actually they didn't really understand when I kind of made that transition. They were like, oh, she's just being flaky. Oh, but actually your commitments change, your priorities change. You have to start to say no, and people don't like that.
The biggest thing I hear is always, you've changed. So if you've changed, and it's not the fact that it's not that I've changed for the worse or for the better. It's just that the priorities, like you said, and the commitment has changed. But I guess kind of just coming back to a really, really important point that I think a lot of the kind of listeners will really be asking themselves, and a lot of people trying to get into business and get out of a job will be asking themselves as well. So, and this question is open for everyone, even yourself, Reese, as well. But would you choose a job you don't enjoy as much, where you have a higher income, or a business that you enjoy more, where you have a lower income, and why, I guess?
I think it depends on the day you ask me.
Today.
So funny, actually, I had a job approach me last 2 weeks ago. Obviously, I'm still in the books for some people. And an old manager of mine had reached out to this recruiting agency, given my details, and authorized them to call me and speak on my behalf. And I was like, I really don't think I don't know how you know me. Like, I don't know where you've got me from. And then when we started talking, it kind of came out that I was a recommendation. And the salary was great. The perks were great. The maternity leave was great. Like, it was phenomenal. And then I was like, but do I want that? Not really, because when the point comes and I am ready to have a child, I don't want to be on maternity leave for 2 months or 3 months. I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. So that's my answer. I'm still standing here. Did not take the job.
Cool.
I don't know. If I'm honest, I think it really depends on the time you ask me. I feel like sometimes I look at my friends that are in 9-to-5 jobs and they come home and they're 100% switched off. They have a routine. They're able to juggle life a little bit better than we are. They're able to kind of make time for family and friends a little bit better. Their gym life is a bit easier. They have like...
That one gets you, doesn't it?
That one pisses me off. Like, they can meal prep, like they know what they're doing every week. It's frustrating, like they're able to like book date night and not change everything. It's one of those things. And then I look at them and they just know what money's coming in, what money's going out. They're less stressed than me. Like, they just seem to be just a little bit more chill in their life, and they just get to enjoy their time. And then you've got like us, and we'll come home and we might decide to go and do something in the day because we have the flexibility. But I think like entrepreneur guilt is like a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, I really think it's such a big thing. Like, I might go and enjoy 2 days off, but I'm going to feel guilty when I'm out. Like, I'm gonna feel that I should have done this. I'll see an email and be like, oh my God, I need to reply back to that email. Like, what are they going to do if I don't reply back to this email? Or what if I lose the deal? Or what if someone gets on the viewing and then my mind is somewhere else? So at the moment, it's a conversation. I will always be a business owner. I will probably, like, unless someone's giving me like £500,000 a year, and I'm not even sure what job I would get for £500,000 a year, because I don't know what
fans.
Well,
it's true.
I think that could be a whole episode in itself. In reality.
I'm so intrigued about this. I actually did research on it. It's actually crazy.
But
the money is unfathomable.
Yeah, but obviously
it's disgusting. And there's things that...
But looks fade, and OnlyFans is all about looks.
All your money in like 3 years.
But you know what? That's a perfect idea of a good business. OnlyFans started not because of what it is now. It started because it was supposed to be for literally sports fans.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Like, it's crazy how things evolve. But I don't know, like, I think I'd always be a business owner. I think that it's just...
You're never going back to work, mate.
It's very difficult. It's just very difficult mentally some days to be okay with the decision you made.
Yeah.
to live this life.
Yeah, but you could not want it. You would hate it if someone told you to go back 9 to 5.
I don't
get on a tube.
Having
half
money,
an hour lunch break.
having money, but being restricted, not having time, is the worst thing you can ever have in the world, because it's almost.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
As a business owner, how much time do you actually really have?
I'll be completely honest with you. I have a lot of time, but I choose to use that time for business, right? Because from my perspective, so let's just put it this way, right? If I didn't work for the next year, and I mean literally didn't do anything for the next year, will I survive? Yes, I will. Will the business survive? Yes, I will. I mean, we've got quite a lot of, probably got about 12 team members in total. So everyone, we've delegated everything, in all honesty, quite well. But when my guilt is, if I'm not putting in the time and effort, the business isn't growing. So my guilt is not about trying to make the business survive. It's about trying to make the business thrive, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, last week, me and Reese went out to the Savoy's property event. It was over the weekend. We went to Marbella. I'll be completely honest with you. I didn't really do much. Those are kind of a couple of days. It took 3 days, even though fair enough it was the weekend, but 3 days. We didn't do much work. We probably checked the emails a few times, morning, it was maybe middle of the day, evening. But I didn't take any phone calls in all honesty or anything like that. Then the following week, I didn't do much either, because me and my wife ended up staying in Spain for a couple of days, and that was probably one of the first times in a while that I've actually taken, I'd probably say, a solid 6 or 7 days without doing much, just doing the bare minimum, or what I call the reactive stuff, no proactive stuff. I didn't enjoy it. I really didn't. And it's not because of the guilt, but it was more because of a case of I enjoy and I thrive off building the business, building the team. It's not about the money. The money's one thing, right? But for me, it's the enjoyment factor, and also working with the right people. So a lot of people are like, why do you have partners? I'm like, I enjoy working with partners because we share the highs, we share the lows. And you know what? I've got someone like Reese, for example, as a business partner in the business. He's probably the least stressed person you'll ever see, the most positive person you'll ever see. When I'm negative and stressed, I always go to him and he's positive. You want people like that to bounce off each other as well. And obviously see you guys are two different characters, but it's a dynamic duo that kind of works quite well.
Yeah, we always have a good time, like 99% of the time. We always have a good time. We always have a laugh. And when one's a bit down or like annoyed, the other one kind of like is having the better day, is having like a day to prop up the other. And I think it just helps. Like it just swings and roundabouts. I think it does help. It does make a difference. Whereas I'm the opposite. Like when I don't work, I do enjoy the switch off. I do enjoy that my mind just is not in something. Like I like to be quite present when I'm somewhere. So like I'm a big travel person. Like I'm just obsessed with travel. So when I go away, I generally don't work. Like it will again be your version of reactive stuff. But if I can delegate it out, I'll delegate it out. I'd rather grow slower and enjoy my journey. What's enjoyment for me? And I think that's what took me a long time to understand, because for the most part, both of us were also going at a pace what we thought that we were supposed to go at, and doing things what other people were doing in their businesses, but they weren't always necessarily quite organic to us and what we wanted and who we were.
We're very conscious about that. What we don't want, we don't want to grow to £100 million business. It's not what we want. And a lot of people use that as a vanity metric. I want to have £1 billion company or whatever. And a real small percentage of them will actually succeed. But we know we don't want that, because to get to that, it's how much sacrifice. I don't want to put that sacrifice in to get to that stage. I might want to get to 20 million, 15 million, and that in its own right is going to be a challenge anyway. But I don't ever want to get to sort of that massive growth, because also you don't really want to have that responsibility on your shoulders as well. But I think for me, the biggest thing was, when you start a business, you go backwards before you go forwards. So that whole 3 to 4 year period of going backwards, I've kind of got over that. And I got to a point where the business doesn't depend on me, which has taken me a long time. It's taken me 6 years to get to a point where now the business doesn't solely depend on me. But I still want to commit to it, because that's just part of my enjoyment, right?
Did you start your business alone?
I started it alone. I did everything on my own, and I started off as a landlord, I guess you can say, the typical landlord, going around with a toolbox, fixing everything, speaking to the tenants, doing everything just to try and understand it. And then as I grew, I brought Cass in, my brother, as a business partner. I then brought Gina in as a business partner, Reese in as a business partner as well. And as we were doing that, we were kind of growing. And we've all got departments now. So Reese manages the lettings department. He's got 4 people working under him. So he will work hard to bring in income for the letting side of the business. I work on the acquisitions and sourcing side of things for our own buying, plus also for the portfolio building clients as well. And again, so I'm not going to look at Reese and be like, why is he not working as hard as me to bring in income for the business? We all work as hard as each other, or Cass working on the project management side as well. So we've kind of divided everything up into departments. Everyone's got people working in those departments, roles and responsibilities. So R&Rs is so important. We don't have task-based roles. No, that's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to bring people together to get that main thing sorted or done. Bruce, I don't know from your point as well, what your thoughts are.
What going back to the question?
Yeah, I mean,
what was the question? Like, would I take? I can't even remember what it was. I was getting so engrossed in everything else.
The original question before we went off tangent.
Yeah.
The original question was: would you rather have a well-paid job that you didn't enjoy, or a lower paid business that you enjoyed?
Low-paid business every single day of the week.
That's what I like.
Because for me, it's all because it's all about the enjoyment. If you're not happy with what you're doing, then you can't sustain it. You see it in a lot of my friends, especially in like university leavers. They come out and they start on the grad role. The grad role's always a little bit ropey, but then they find that second jump where you sort of enter that sort of like 30 to 50k salary range where it feels like a lot of money, because some of them might still live at home and they don't have a lot of financial commitments, and they will just hate what they do. They don't wake up and want to go to work. Every day is a Snapchat, Instagram story, like, oh, Friday feeling, oh, Monday blues, all of this like nonsense. And it's like every single day I get to wake up, as Saif said, like I won't go into it because it's just rattling off the same stuff, but we wake up, we're ready to work. Like, we're happy to get the laptop out at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm happy to be in the office at 8, 9, 10 p.m. at night, like with tunes blasting out and having a bit of fun while I finish up emails for the day. Like, I wouldn't ever swap this for anything, because for me,
it's good flexibility. Very
but
true.
Also, Reese went from having to. Reese is a massive gym goer, right? Like, he is the most dedicated gym goer I've ever seen, and I'm the probably complete opposite. But it's discipline that he went there every evening, and then he had to switch that to a morning gym routine, and he just worked around it. But that was his priority, like no negotiations with that.
I'll tell you what I do.
Have a husband like that.
I'll tell you what I love about working for myself, which I feel like is quite controversial, if I'm honest, is I am not a morning person. Like, I am not. I actually don't want to get up at 6 a.m. You could probably give me £1 million. I'm not going to want to get up at 6 a.m. I'm just not that human being. I never have been. I don't like it. I don't like having an alarm. I like naturally waking up and then going about my day. And I get to do that. My natural time is about between 8 and 8:30. Yes, 8 and 8:30 roughly. But I go to bed late. I'm a very late person.
That's fine.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm the same. Yeah. I'm exactly the same. And I think something that sleep is the something that's criticised massively in sort of like among entrepreneurs, because everybody's like, bang, 5 a.m. you've got to be on it. You've got to get, like, do your gratitude, then you've got to run to the gym and work out for 3 hours and then come back and then have like an acai bowl for breakfast.
I can never have less than that. 8 hours I need minimum a day. And that is non-negotiable as well. I don't care what's going on. I need 8 hours of sleep every day. Simple as that. And I think everyone does. Anyone that tells you I can survive on 3, you can for a couple of days, but it's not sustainable. It's not healthy.
I hate these people.
It's not even healthy.
Well, get
It's a
yourself.
carcinogen.
Everybody else is awake. No, I don't want to. I don't like it. I will not. It makes me miserable, and I shouldn't have to wake up at that time. If we have viewings and stuff, like, and we have to go up north or whatever, there's like every so often we have to do it. I'm not opposed by it. Stop giving me these looks.
If you've got a holiday, Jasmine, of course, if you're going travelling and you've got an early flight.
I try to book my flights later so I know at what time I can get up. Like, I am just that person. I don't like it. But I feel like I like the fact that actually I do run my own business. So why should I have to get up at 6 a.m. if I don't want to? I don't want to. Why should I?
I'm the opposite.
Yeah,
that's fine. And the thing is, you guys, so Priya, you can't force Jasmine to wake up early because you like to wake up early, and vice versa. You guys have got to come to terms with, that's Jasmine, that's Priya. Let everyone do their thing, and that's how you work in harmony. And I think we have that as well, even within our team as well. Different people have different dynamics. Just let everyone do their thing. I mean, we only realized that when we did team dynamics. So we did a different type of like team dynamics to figure out what kind of personality everyone is. And when you start to realize that, you realize that there's people that don't like being put in the spotlight. So they don't like doing these, podcasts or conversations or whatever. They like working behind the scenes, doing their spreadsheets, and they're wizards at it. So place people. It's like being a manager for a sports team, right? Place everyone in the role that they're going to thrive in, and repurpose people rather than getting rid of them. And if you repurpose them and it still's not worked out, then obviously you can get rid of them.
It's a good way of doing it, to be honest. Cool. Play to your strengths.
Well, look, I've really enjoyed that. Honestly, this has been amazing podcast recording for me. So we're coming to the end of the podcast recording, and I'm going to let Reese do the honours on this one.
Okay, perfect. So, Priya, Jasmine, the crucial question. I'd like to build up a bit of tension here.
I feel like you
then the lights come down. So basically, with the name being the outcomes income, as we mentioned earlier, we like to always offer one sort of tangible way that anybody listening could start to implement or generate an income stream. So just to give you guys a bit of context to get your brain ticking over, we've had some really interesting takes on this because I appreciate it's not something that's very easy to answer on the fly. So a good example of this, a couple of episodes ago, we asked the question and somebody said, well, they would probably look to start creating content and build an audience. And they were sort of comparing an audience to an income and then how, you can monetize an audience. So they were speaking of it in that perspective. So it's completely open-ended on how you guys would approach that. But
do I hear?
Like I say, for anybody listening,
maybe only fans, but let's see.
First of all, I feel like we should have thought about this before the podcast because it's quite a hard question to
I don't think
of.
we were given a question before.
We weren't, no.
Yeah,
but I'm saying
Priya likes to be prepared.
Yeah.
She likes to have questions. She likes to understand what's happening.
I'm actually surprised I got on this podcast and said, what are we talking about today? Because
I was put people on the spot though, and we don't have a set of questions we ask because every single conversation goes off in a tangent. And that's the beauty of it.
No, but I didn't even know what I was talking about today, and that's very unlike me.
Yeah.
I think because we've obviously met, and I just thought, do you know what, he's a good guy, just do it, whatever. And that's literally the thought process. And then I just now I was getting the laptop, I was like, I don't even know what I'm saying. Like, I don't know.
It's come out naturally and organically, and it's been, honestly, that is the best way to get content out. It's just your natural way of what's in your mind, really.
Yeah.
So it's actually really funny because my answer was very similar to Reese, because a few weeks ago we spoke at a PIN meeting and there was a little boy there. And when I say little, he looked really young.
He was
17, but he looked very young. So I was like, why is he here? And I don't talk to anyone, even when I have to present. I'm just standing there, literally. I was like, Jazzy, why is he here? I want to speak to him. So I went and I spoke to him. And he wants to get into property. He wants to do a degree. I went through his whole life, blah, blah, blah. And we're just talking. And he's such a smart, well-in-tuned kid. And I said, are you here by yourself? He goes, no, my dad's over there. I said, that's so brave that you're not standing with your dad, because I lived in my dad's shadow for quite some time before I got out there. I said, at that age, he goes, no, when we walk in, we walk to the left and the right. And he does his thing and I do my thing. I was like, okay, cool. Anyway. So we did our presentation. At the end of the presentation, he had his hand up. The host didn't ask him for his question. It really pissed me off. So I went up to him and I said, what was your question? And we started talking and he was asking me a lot of questions. Jasmine was on the other side of the room. He was asking me a lot of questions. He wanted to do maths, chemistry and physics. How's that going to help him in property? I said, it's not, but you've got to do it. Because that's my, mindset for education and then going into your business. Anyway, yesterday morning, I said to him, start content, start networking, start putting yourself out there, start using resources, start learning. If you ever want to come on site day, let me know if we can help you. If you want to come sit in our office, I had the most amount of time for this little boy. Yesterday morning, I woke up and he had WhatsApped me, hi Priya, this is my Instagram page, please can you follow me? So very similarly to that, and I think this little guy will fly, but he started something. He's got no income coming in yet, but in a few years' time, he will.
So 2 things that I took away from that. Put yourself out there and take action now, basically. Don't just sit and contemplate things.
Yeah, don't. I think education is really important. Whatever you take as education, I feel like if you want to get involved into business, like, and you're not sure what business it is, go on some sort of course, or go and read a business book. Find out what kind of way to set up a business. Go talk to an accountant. Like, you can start doing groundwork on businesses before you actually go and figure out what is that business. Like, people go find a property and then figure out the company structure. I don't agree with that. I think you should kind of have your foundations and understand them, and make good decisions from the beginning, not on a fly, just start something and then work backwards. So if you're not 100% sure of how to kind of, if you're going to go into stocks, or if you're going to, I don't know, create your own business, or you're going to start, I don't know, whatever, you might start your own little t-shirt factory or whatever, whatever it might be, whatever business you're going into, you can start learning a little bit about the foundations of business, and kind of start brainstorming and looking at entrepreneurs and kind of seeing what they're doing, and take little bits of everybody, take little bits of successful people you deem to be successful, and just kind of tweak their things that work for you. You don't have to, I don't think you should necessarily 100% copy, but if you like something that someone's doing and the way that they're doing it, you can kind of alter a little bit and make it work for you a little bit, and that way it's organic to you, but it's also helpful and productive.
Yeah, so this might be quite controversial, Jasmine, but just based on what you just said as well. So I know property courses or business courses or any kind of courses can be quite controversial these days, right? Because of the whole, people say you can get the exact same information through free resources such as podcasts, YouTube videos, etc. I get it. The two things that I will always say, though, is it's the deliverability of how that information gets delivered to you, number one. And number two, for me, the real value of going to a course, if that's what people want to do, is the network, because you've got other like-minded people going there, and people build their networks. And one thing that I kind of look back on, so I didn't start out my typical journey of going through courses and stuff like that. But actually, if I look back on it, I actually would have probably wanted to have gone to courses, not for the information, because I had most of that information, but more for the networking side of things, the building the relationships, the people that are going to cheer you on throughout that journey in a way. And that's where you kind of, and that's one thing I struggled with is I never had that, in all honesty. And I think it's a really, really
I don't think I agree with that. I don't think I agree with that, though, because one of the things that puts me off courses, and I'm not saying like I'm fantastically great. I'll give you an example. We both went on the Auction Buyers Club course together. I didn't know you didn't know me. Obviously, we were Instagram friends and whatever. On that course, I would say there was very like-minded people there. I think that's one of the only courses I have been on where I have seen that. Right.
Yeah.
And bearing in mind, I've spent over, I would say, £60,000 on property education, just because I come from the mindset I'm very structured, project-based, strategy-based.
She likes theory. She likes to apply the theory.
So I always give it a shot.
The background of something.
And when I've been to the other courses, which are, I'm not going to name names, and I'm not bigging up that course because I'm just giving an example here. I've been on another course, multiple courses. The people in the room were not on my wavelength. They were not like-minded. They were not there. Some were very, very arrogant because I was a young girl, and some were just there for I don't know what.
I think sometimes there's like a fine line. So I think it's about education can fit into whatever you deem education to be. So I personally would find like a mentor or a coach, and kind of, I think I like the direct learning. I like the on the job stuff. I like the actual, like, I want the nitty gritty. I don't want all the theory shit that may or may not apply to me.
I did say controversial, I'm not number one, and number two, I'm coming from a point of view of not going on these courses. So
no, but you are
now,
correct.
I think there is
the
opposite side.
I think there's caliber of training and caliber of courses. And sometimes,
so
when you get the free one, it's questionable. When you get the ones that are very like,
even like, some that we
pay like £500 into, sometimes when it's a very small amount of money, it's easy for anybody to come into. When it's a little bit more and people are willing to invest in themselves to learning, I think that's the kind of like place where you find great people to network, and you find people that, or if it's like a further course into that industry, then everybody's already kind of got their foot in the door, and that's where you
And
kind of network with people with
maybe
like-mindedness.
it's because I've just
And
gone
I think
to
that comes down to,
yeah, maybe it's because I've gone to the right ones and I've not seen the wrong
yeah,
ones. But it's as I said, it's a controversial point, and I think it's an important point to bring up though, to see everyone's different opinions on it. I love that.
yeah. And I think as well, the price point of our course, again, I'm not bigging up, it was substantial in comparison to other courses, and it was very niche.
Yeah.
So if you want to go onto a course like that, you would have had some prior experience within the property field, I believe, to just generally say, do you know what, I'm going to start trading property tomorrow. That's a whole...
Or you've got really, 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 really big balls just to go start doing that straight away.
So I think it depends as well. Like the basic stuff that's out there, I really, really, it makes me so mad.
I think the basic training courses that you could have originally got on, you can now get for free online. You can get that stuff for free. I think anything further where you're wanting actual real life example and real life experience, and kind of not so much, you could do this, and I did this 10 years ago. If you want actual something, then I think you've got to pay a substantial amount.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the real value is. And you have to kind of sometimes take a leap on yourself that you are worth the investment, because I think that's where people forget that they don't want to pay, let's for argument's sake, say they don't want to pay £5,000 to invest in themselves because they believe the £5,000 should go into their business, but they forget that you are your business. So if you don't invest in yourself and you only want to invest in your business, you've already got a disconnect.
I think
I'm also very skeptical of people.
But part two is going to be the good, the bad, and ugly of property courses. That's part 2 of this podcast.
Probably not going to get that. We're not going to get that. We'll be there for a couple of hours. These guys will edit us.
Brilliant. But look, you weren't prepared for that. But how much content, information did you get out your mind and to people, which is going to be beneficial? So yeah, that is absolutely brilliant, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I love the fact that you guys took action, you jumped on, and we really had a really good podcast recording with you guys. So thank you very much for coming on, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You take care.
Our pleasure.
Right.
Oh well, guess you lose some and win some. Long as the outcome is income.
That was episode 8 of the Outcome is Income podcast with your hosts, Saif Derzi and Reese Booth. If you've been enjoying these episodes so far, please like, share and subscribe to our podcast. If you can, it would really help us if you can leave a review. And why not? Share it with your friends and your family. It's free information and they'll benefit from it. And trust me when I say this, we have some absolutely amazing guests coming onto our podcast. So stay tuned and find out more.